to the first slide here. How do I change slides? There we go. So first, whenever I take in webinars or presentations, I like to know a little bit about the presenter, and not just that I'm somebody who logged into a computer and is going to talk to you for a while. So my name is Dean Staboda. I'm the founder and executive director for the Autism Aspergers Friendship Society in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And one of the main bases of our organization is acceptance. And I learned this early on in my life when I was a young man, well, a young kid in elementary school, and our family moved across the city, and my mom explained to the three of us boys going to school on the first day, she said, remember how it feels to be the new kid. And in the rest of your life, think about that new kid in the room and how they may be feeling. And I took this to heart for a lot of my life, and I've always looked to include outsiders and look at the people that aren't accepted and sitting on the outside. And that really was a lot of frame around my life. My first introduction into autism was in a grade 7 classroom. I was working as an educational assistant, and I'd never been exposed to the spectrum at all. And before I met the two boys I was assigned to work with, the teacher gave me 2 coloring books and said, these will keep the 2 boys you're going to work with busy. I didn't know anything about autism, but I did know that 2 boys in grade 7 likely weren't sent to school to be kept busy. And that was a huge frame around what I did. I was later told that their moms were problem parents and to keep an eye out for them. I learned very quickly that I love problem parents because those are the parents that want to get value for their kids. They want things to happen. Their moms also introduced me to the wonderful word of autism, and very shortly after I met the 2 boys and their families, I immersed myself into autism in every which way I could. I took a job almost immediately at a residential treatment program from 6 till 9 a.m., went from there directly to the school, went from school to either a family's home or to I was working in an IBI, ABA private therapy program in the evenings, and basically immersed myself in anywhere that included or had autism as a part of it, because I wanted to learn and know more because I was so enthralled with these 2 boys. The 2 boys are actually on the right there. I don't know if you can see my cursor, one of the bottom pictures. The 2 biggest guys in there, on the bottom left picture. And then along with their parents, because I knew so little about autism, I'd really fell back on my background in sports and leadership and coaching. And they saw a lot of value coming out of this, and the idea that I didn't know a lot at the time about what I was supposed to be doing. And we basically sat around when they said a lot of what's happening with Sean and Jared is going really, really well. Let's just use some of what you're doing, get some kids together and play some games one night, without the goals of therapy, without therapists, without clipboards, just to play. From that, we saw a lot of really tangible outcomes. Kids were learning, kids were behaving differently when outside of that observation room environment, and it was really incredible. So when we took our idea to 6 different organizations, I'm going to get a message that somebody does not hear anything. I want to make sure that's not on my end. Okay. Looks like it's Jocelyn's speaker. Is Amanda typing? Perfect. Okay, thank you. Basically, we took our idea of starting an organization where we made the social world the primary focus and sort of forgave some of the behavior. That idea to 6 different organizations. They all said no. Their first priority was behavior and functionality. And after that, their social stuff happened. I knew from working in these programs that the social and rec stuff always fell off. If there was a misstep in behavior or a misstep in functionality, the social and rec piece didn't get done. For me, it was more important sometimes that kids behaved together, even if it was badly. We could shape some of that behavior, but once they were behaving together, that was the key thing for us. Whether it was good behavior, bad behavior, deviant behavior, we could shape that once they were behaving together. So we started the organization in 2004, and who are we, what do we do? That's one of our little pitches. We saw a lot of kids enduring very stressful days. School was a horrible day for them. It was very stressful, filled with nothing but stress and trying to fit in. Doctors and people were telling them they needed recreation and social stuff, but those didn't exist. So we asked a simple question: when did kids get a chance to be kids? So our mission is to provide an accepting environments for members of the autism community to develop friendships, grow socially, and connect to the greater community. Our vision is a world where there are no barriers to acceptance and everyone is given the opportunity to have a social and recreationally satisfying future. So how do we do this? So I'll give you an overview of what we do in our programs. So one of our programs is community outings, and these are basically those swimming, laser quest, bowling. They happen mostly on the weekends. They're one-off. So we have one member who's 47 years old that we see one time per year at a Christmas event at what's called Heritage Park here in Calgary. And those community outings are really based on the fact that families aren't signing up for the next 10 Saturdays, no matter what's happening. They're empowering their youth to make those choices and choose which Saturdays they want to take part in. So if they love swimming, we want to see them swimming. If they hate animals, we don't want them to come to the zoo. We want them to take part in what they want to take part in. Clubhouse nights, similar to community outings, they are one-offs, so family people can sign up whenever and as often as they like. These are nights that we spend at our clubhouse. Video games, arts nights, crafts nights, making YouTube videos, watching YouTube videos, whatever our youth express that they want for those nights, they always help plan our events. So the clubhouse nights, again, one-offs, 2 to 3 nights a week, depending on our other schedules. And those are just nights that get kids sign up, they come out and they play. Specialized programs. This is an area of growth that we've huge growth over the last few years, and there's a webinar I did last year for Else for Autism on our specialized programs. These are, that says 6 to 12 weeks, they're at 6 to 24 weeks long. They're the interest-based topics. So our most recent specialized programs that we've started are a boxing program, a lacrosse program, and we had a racket sampler. So over 8 weeks, different racket sports. Over the 8 weeks, the youth got to try 4 different racket sports for 2 weeks apiece. And now we're seeing already out of that, we'll likely be starting a badminton program in the fall because badminton was extremely popular with our kids and they loved it. Our specialized programs have every focus you can imagine, making movies. We've had a water sampler. You can see the rafting group from our water sampler. One of the pictures down there, of course, is our Game On program, which we love because we have such great partners in Ernie Els for Autism that help us do that. And the next facet of our programs are specialized care programs. And these are typically programs that don't necessarily fit under another umbrella, but there's definitely been an expression of need and want from the community. So we start these so that maybe an adult pub night program, maybe our last program is just 4 to 9, our girls club. We have Ask Rural, which just is now a program, getting our programs out to the rural centers and communities surrounding our city of Calgary. So those in a nutshell are all of our programs. Everything we do is based socially and recreationally. So for us, again, as we talk about, our main basis is acceptance for the youth when they come. We're not trying to fix anybody. We're not trying to change anybody. We want them to come here, be accepted, make some friends, behave socially, and ideally take those behaviors and actions into other facets of your life. So that may be a youth signing up for an extracurricular school activity that they never had before. It may be a youth going to sit with somebody at lunchtime that they never have before. So for us, those are really the heart of what we do. In our programs, we get to do so many amazing things. So intentional mentorship. So intentional mentorship is a program aimed at developing leadership skills in a number of our youth through volunteering alongside our program delivery team. All of our mentees are provided a direct mentor, our social experience guides. Our social experience guides, that's our frontline staff position, so that's our program delivery team. That title has changed a number of times over the years, but for us, that social experience guide really hits the heart of what we're looking for our staff to do, and that is bring youth in, make them feel accepted, show them that social world, and allow them to find their own experience in that social world. It's not on us to put our expectations of what social behavior is on our youth. I have friends that I will sit in a room with for 4 hours, watch a hockey game, and not speak a word to each other. I have friends that will sit down for 3 hours and will talk passionately about one subject. So the idea that we want to give our youth the power to choose their social behavior. How are they going to socialize? What do relationships like them look like? So the basic path for a mentor is they'll join our organization as a young person, become an AAFS member, take part in programs, find areas socially that they're active in, where they're strong in, the things they love, things they like to do, places they enjoy, people they want to hang out with. And that's the first stage of everybody's evolution, is being an AAFS member. The next stage is they come into the intentional mentorship program, which is the volunteering side of things on those programs. So can people see my cursor when I'm moving it on the screen? No? Okay. Okay. There's a picture in the middle there with a guy in a red jersey, two big smiles right in the middle. So that's Anton, and I'll tell more about him after. But one of the places for him was he loved going to the sports arena in Calgary, the Olympic Saddle Dome. He didn't have a lot of great communication skills, but in the Saddle Dome, he was very powerful. He knew where everything was. He could find anything when he needed to. He could guide other youth around the Saddle Dome. And so that became a place of empowerment for him where he could go from that being a member to a volunteer. And then eventually he became a staff member working those activities, helping other youth learn about in that environment. And our end goal is always for youth to leave us and go off into the world and get a job elsewhere. And I'll tell a few stories about that near the end of this. So the intentional mentorship process. So for us, as I talked about, everybody first becomes an AAFS member as a young person, and our members begin anywhere from age 4 to later in life. But once they're an AAFS member, they're a member of our community, and we do everything we can for them. So once they're a member, we look to identify who may be a fit for the intentional mentorship process. And there's really 3 areas of identification. So our staff may identify. So when I talked about Anton, staff may notice, wow, Anton is really good with younger members. Staff may notice that somebody has a lot of leadership. Anton went over and helped Johnny buy a C-train ticket without us even asking. The self-identification. So youth will come forward, especially since we started the intentional mentorship process. Our young teenagers will find out that one of our staff has autism, and they'll ask, Anton has autism, can I work at AAFS one day? Yes, of course you can work at AAFS one day. Of course, I use language in quotes. We all know that everybody has varying levels of language, so some of those are toyed with. They may be expressed through a device, maybe expressed through a sign, but it's an expression of that person saying, I want to work, I want to be a leader. The third identification is the parent guardian saying, my son or daughter would love to work here. Those are great, but for us, we always have to be sure that it's a youth want and a youth interest. We have had in the past where a parent says, Johnny wants to volunteer, Johnny wants to work at AAFS one day, and then we start to bring Johnny through the process and learn very quickly, Johnny doesn't want that at all. AAFS is his place for fun. AAFS is where his friends are. He doesn't want to work here. And that's perfectly okay. And we have to then help parents understand that your wants aren't necessarily Johnny's wants. And that can be a huge moment for parents to really start to empower their young person to say, maybe it is time for me to give them more choice. We really find the best form of identification has been our staff, because they a lot of times help a lot of these members from that very first intake of going to the LRT station, like that's our public transit train, so similar to a subway system. At that station, taking them from the point of not being able to buy their ticket to years later being able to buy their ticket, get on the train, get to anywhere in the city, and now that youth has all those skills, how can we then teach them to share those skills with somebody else? And a lot of our members do that so naturally because they have that understanding of what that other young person is going through, and their understanding of how to teach some skills is really incredible. So once we've identified youth and we have seen that it is something they want, it is something they want to be a part of, we go through the interview process. Because for us, the interview time is where we can really learn a whole bunch about what environments may work, what times of day, what is their capacity, how often can they start volunteering? Do they want to be out? Is their goal to be volunteering 5 days a week? Is it 1 day a week after school? Because for us, if we overload them or underload them, that's not going to work. It's very important that we learn through the interview and intake what they're looking for and what they're capable of. So I talk about environments of strength. So when I talked about Anton earlier, his environment of strengths was the Saddle Dome here in Calgary. It's our big 20,000 person hockey arena. He's amazing down there. He's probably our best staff member down there. It was our best staff member down there. But there's other environments that if he was outside at a zoo or an amusement park, he could not work in those environments. Just too many things, too many noises, too many different types of people, too many different types of crowds, lineups, all those different things to deal with. There's no way he could be he doesn't want to attend there in his free time, never mind trying to be a staff helping others there. So for us, it's really identifying environments of strength. The other important part of environments is the personal side of the difference between participating as an AAFS member on programs and being a volunteer. So we talk about movie theaters typically in this interview process, telling the youth, now that you're a volunteer, just because you want to see Avengers doesn't mean you get to see it. Yes, you want to see Avengers, but that 13-year-old member wants to see the new Pikachu movie, you're going to see Pikachu, because we're talking about empowering our members' choices, empowering what they want to do. So it's not about what you want, it's about what the member wants. And so that difference about being a participant and volunteer, and why do you want to become a mentor? Because the why is a big deal. We go up top to the identification. There has been in the past where parents and guardians express that their young person wants to be a volunteer because they see this as an avenue of not paying. They heard that volunteers don't have to buy movie tickets. So now if my son is a volunteer, I'm going to save some money and not have to buy a movie ticket. But that's not why we want volunteers. We want people because they want to be a mentor, they want to help others, they want to share what they've learned, and that's where we learn this, is through the interview process. So our interview process will sometimes last 90 minutes with some of our youth, and it may be in different environments, it may be in different sessions, but we have to be sure through that interview that we learn everything we can before we give them sort of that, let's go into the intake side of things. Because once they're in the intake, a lot of our youth that come through are very black and white. Once we enter that intake, there is no turning back, so to speak. So that interview process is incredibly important. Then we get to the intake side of things. So when we say, yes, we think you're going to be a match, we think we're going to take you into this, we need very clear guidelines around expectations. So again, the difference in participating as an AAFS member on an activity and being a volunteer. Goal setting and individualization, which I'll bring up a few times, is very important, because everybody's goal may be different, and if they have those goals, if they have goals they can hit, they're going to be a lot more successful. So in this round, a lot of plain language material is important to have. So we have all of our interviews in plain language, in visual, in sort of the regular speak. Depending what path we may see them going on after us, we see this as a ground for us to groom a number of future staff for us. But also, again, our goal being, we want them to go into the world after and succeed. So we will challenge them through the interview and intake side of things, that yes, we know this is going to be difficult, but should you want to move on and go get a job elsewhere, you're going to have to be able to fill out some of this paperwork. You're going to have to be able to answer some of these questions. And so we have all those different materials available, but for us, it is important that we are pushing them along and getting them ready for that next step outside of our organization. And then the mentor. So we're fortunate because 90% of our mentors come through our membership side of things. We have staff that we know they connect with. We have staff on hand that we know are ready and prepared to mentor, and our staff love mentoring our young members when they enter into that volunteer world. And that gives our intentional mentors that one person to go to. So one of the things, we have a staff team of just under 70 right now. So even for any of our staff, trying to figure out who to ask a question to, who to tell you're struggling, that can be really difficult. So we do this for all of our staff, but in particular for our intentional mentors, knowing that when I have a question, about anything, I go to Ryan, is very important. Because as soon as they're lost, as soon as they don't really have that touch point and they don't ask that question, everything sort of snowballs down into a negative side of things, because their question didn't get asked, they didn't know who, they were afraid to ask another person. So of course we have some backups in place should somebody move on, should somebody go on vacation, but that consistent point of contact for support is so important. The consistent review and adjustment. So there's a period of time, and I'll talk later about how timelines are very much like water and they flow. There is no strict timeline for our mentors to go on their journey, but it's very important to a consistent review and adjustment of goals. So that if we're 2 weeks into the process and we find a goal just is not going to be feasible where we placed it, we're going to sit down, we're going to readjust that goal because we want everything set up for success. We know people are going to fail, and we're very big on failure with our organization. You don't fail without trying, but the more we can set up for success, the better. And that consistent review of adjustment of goals is very important. I'll say quickly, because I don't know if I touched on it after, that a lot of what we've done with our intentional mentors and set up the clear communication, the consistent support, the really regimented interview and in-depth interview and intake process, we started to twin this with just our regular recruitment of staff. So a lot of what we've done with our intentional mentors, which are folks on the spectrum, if that hasn't been clear, we've then now learned, and we tell this to community partners who look to employ, everything we're doing for our intentional mentors is also great for all of our regular employees. So that's something I wanted to touch on because that is a huge thing. Now, once they've been through the mentorship process, we get to the fun part, which is always super exciting for a lot of our mentors, and that's hiring them, which is great, but it can cause some things. So for us in Alberta, Canada, we have to have considerations around funding. So a lot of our adults over 18 will have AISH, which is Alberta's Income for the Severely Handicapped, and they may also have PDD, which is their support funding for community access, living supports. AISH is for the rent, living, food type thing. PDD is more the support side of things. So depending on what they have, if they have both, there may be limitations on the amount of money they can make, the number of hours they can work, sometimes the type of work they can do. So we do have to pay attention to those, and so we may have to send timesheets and paychecks to other social workers in the field to, here, Zach worked 15 hours this week. He typically works 5. He may be over. Let us know anything we have to know to adjust, because we don't want their AISH being compromised. It's a government system thing, which everybody understands. So yeah, we don't want everyone want to compromise that or put them in a position of losing AISH or PDD. So for us, that's a huge consideration when we're going through the hiring process. And I talked a little bit about capacity before. Is that capacity of the individual is very important. So right now, we do a number of hiring through job programs here for folks on the spectrum. And one of the things is government of Canada sees 30 hours of work per week as success, and that's the goal of some of the programs. But we have to go sometimes back to the government that's providing the funding and saying, this person working 30 hours a week is not going to work. This person's capability is only 10 hours per week. We can stage that and have a goal of 30, but just because 30, we cannot put 30 hours as success for 100% of people. Everybody has a different capacity. And again, if that capacity is overloaded, we get thrown right back to square one very quickly. The capacity is also important in teaching. And again, this is something we've started with our mentors, which we now really, really stress with all of our staff, is that work-life balance. So capacity may be, I can only work 20 hours a week, but if I don't get my 10 hours a week of video game time, then I'm really going to go downhill. So that capacity includes work-life balance, and that's something we've started with our mentors, but now that we really stress for all of our staff. It's great that you want to work every day of the week and you want to work every program and every camping trip, but when are you going to go camping for yourself? When are you going to hang out with your friends? Everybody needs that work-life balance, and through that hiring process is when we really try to figure that out. And then I think we want to put them in positions to succeed. So that doesn't mean bubble wrapping and sugarcoating everything, but it means being sure the environments they're going to be working in will be successful for them and they are able to have success. So again, we talk about Anton, he hates animals because of all the smells and the sounds and stuff, hates the zoo because of the crowds and the unpredictability about where we're going to go or what's going to happen. He never worked a shift at the zoo because that would not be a position to succeed. There may be avenues where we can push him, but we've got to decide, where can we push, where can we not push? Where is pushing somebody to a next step just become counterproductive and more problem creating than anything? So the position to succeed centers around being sure they're with their mentor, they have their mentor, environments that they feel strong in, and all of those little things. Let's say I get a glass of water. Sorry. So just some odds and ends I may have touched on, but I'm not 100% sure if I did or not. So the flexible timelines. So this is important. So in everybody's manual for work, I'm sure we have a similar sort of statement around probationary periods for employees, due dates for training materials, due dates for first aid classes. We have all those for our mentors, but they're an intentional mentorship program, but we have to be flexible. So we don't have a probation period for them in their employment letter. And we've gotten the okay for that from various people we have to get that okay from, because we know everybody's going to be different. There may be, somebody may need 6 weeks to go through the 8-hour first aid class. Somebody may need extended timelines just to get a lot of those things in place. So we have mentees who have taken 9 months to make that path to employment. Others have been ready right away. Some just grasped to it. Some were already kind of working as employees as 16 to 17-year-olds on program because that's just their default. We know a lot of people whose default is leadership, default is guiding. I know young people who are so much more comfortable in a social environment when they're guiding because they just don't know how to take part in that socially. And we have seen that in some of our folks who gravitate towards mentorship so easily and then looked, well, you know what, they were never really good as a member in that environment. And then we reverse that and start to work with them again on that socialization piece in the environment, that you don't always have to be the mentor. You can just go and have fun. And so that becomes a very big deal. The mentor-mentee relationship. So mentorship works best when there's already that built rapport between the mentee and mentor. So again, we have our members grow up in our programs. Typically, there's a staff member that they gravitate towards that they have a different level of communication with. And those are the natural mentors. And like I said, we haven't had a staff ever refuse to be a mentor. Our staff love being a mentor. They love bringing in the young people. They've seen these youth for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and they've helped bring that youth up to where they are. So when they're asked to take that next step and be a mentor, they're really excited about it. And we have seen a lot of real friendships grow out of those relationships, because again, once you're spending that intimate time with each other and you have the mentee expressing when they're at their worst, when they're at their best to you, the level of those relationships really, really grows. So right now we currently have 13 intentional mentorship graduates on staff. So that's 9 of those are in our program staff. 4 of those work in various sections of our office and administration. Our total staff number, it says 51 there. We're going to be up over 70 as we hire for summer here. And we're hoping out of those, we're hiring 15 for the summer very shortly. And our goal is for 3 of those to be from our current intentional mentorship. So we have 3 in there that we believe are ready to enter into the staff world. And we're just going to finalize that over the next month or 2. And I talked a little bit about the impact on our full staff team. The way we recruit, train, orientate, supervise, evaluate our intentional mentors has impacted the way we do this with all of our staff. We really find that, and it seems so silly to say out loud, but individualization for all of our staff in their support models, in their evaluation processes, has just made a whole different world. But sometimes we don't think about those things when we're working with that neurotypical population. They think about, somebody has autism, we're going to have to change the way we do things. When really we should be doing, as an employer, we should be changing the way we do things with all of our staff, for them individually, teaching them work-life balance, allowing those with different learning styles to do some of the training courses differently, and everything there. So it has been a huge impact on our organization. And our turnover of staff has really lessened since we've implemented a lot of what we do with the mentors with our full staff team. Our intentional mentorship works because I know our members socially so well, and we're able to leverage those strengths and we're aware of their challenges. We have had intentional mentors come from outside the organization. It's a longer process because we explain to them we have to get to know you before we can just give you a mentor. I think in there's a lot of job training programs out there that are really great, but at times they're just sort of giving a mentor to somebody that is not a match at all, or a job coach, maybe a more popular language. They give a job coach to somebody without really doing a matching phase, and they can't figure out why it goes wrong. Well, it didn't go well. It didn't go well because Dean talks so fast and so monotonely, and Johnny hates that. Johnny needs somebody who talks very slowly and very little. And if we would have known that from the start, we would have known from the start that I was not a good job coach for Johnny. So I think matching that mentor and mentee is so important. We have also had in the past where we just assumed that one of our staff members would be a great mentor for a young person. And we found out, no, they're really good friends on programs, but they can't mentor because the mentor just doesn't have that right rapport. So again, matching those mentors and mentees is super, super important. And we have been through 1, 2, 3 different mentors before we found that right fit. And that's when it really starts to take off. So right now we frequently check in with our mentors, both that are with our organization and ones that are without. So we ask them some very simple questions about the process. So when we ask them, and these are 3 responses to each question pulled from the huge pool of responses. So the best thing was the gratification of the new responsibilities that I was given and the trust I had built to myself because of the support from the rest of the team. We see this a lot in that youth, and I'm sure everybody can identify with this, youth from the outside appear to have confidence and appear to have a lot of really good things, but we find out they're just acting because that's just become easier over the years than expressing the challenges they face. So we see that when they're actually given the responsibilities, the expression is that I've now actually got confidence in myself. Another member said, seeing the other side of AAFS, seeing what goes on behind the scenes in the office that the members don't see. So this is one of the young guys, I'm sure folks know a number of folks that would identify in the Asperger side of things, who always had a ton of questions about, I'm 14, why can't I drive a car? Questions everywhere, and always wanted to know what was happening. So when he had the chance to do a work experience and came into the office, he got to get answers to a lot of those questions that he didn't know. How does the schedule get planned? Who puts the stuff on the website? How does it go on the website? How does our website work? We couldn't really answer those very well as when he was 14, 15, but now that he's in the office doing those things, it's that real gratification for him to know what's happening to everything, to every side of AAFS. And then the last one on that thing is the best part was learning more about myself as a person and not changing for others, but changing to be a better version of me. So that's where we talk about a lot of our youth come in feeling they're always trying to be fixed. We don't want to fix everybody. We want to find the best version of you, accept you, and move you forward. And for this young person, it was coming into that mentorship process and being a mentor of how much he learned about himself through some of the younger youth. The hardest part. There's a lot of hard parts to it. It's not a very easy process. That we, like I said, we do challenge a lot of these young people because if we don't challenge them, we don't really know what they're capable of. So the learning through experience of what it's like as a staff versus youth in terms of accountability and responsibility. So I know this young person is talking a lot about, as a member, he would see behaviors on program from other members and would sort of just discount it and move away from it. And now when he's in a position that he has to deal with some of the behaviors and figure out how to help with a meltdown, how do you communicate to a youth that doesn't have language, and all these little things. And then not only doing that, but being accountable for it and responsible for it. So I know for this young person, speaking with parents after a program when a youth has had a challenge was something he never thought he wanted to do, and we weren't going to have him do it. Very quickly, he decided he wanted to do that because when he was young, he had to talk to his parents about a lot of these things, and he's become incredible about talking to a parent about their young person's behavior and the way he expresses and the way he identifies with that youth and supports that youth and gets that youth to express to the parents. It's really incredible. Learning how to take criticism and working well with others. We find a lot of our youth come up never being really criticized. They're told they're wrong. They're given an X on their behavior sheet, but really taking that criticism for improvement and being expected to work well with others is new to a lot of them. Last one, the initial transition from volunteer to staff, because once you go down that path, there are a lot bigger expectations. So again, we always use the movie example because that's a very tangible thing that we can talk to youth about, is when you're a member, you come to a movie program with two movies to choose from. I want to see Avengers or I want to see Transformers. And when you're a staff member, you come with 100 movie choices because you're going to the going to the movie the youth choose. And so that different expectation of when you're a staff member compared to when you're a volunteer or a member coming to the program, it's a big adjustment for some of our youth. And we've had a staff just recently that said he is an intentional mentor. He's been working for about 6 months. He'd done a few movie days out to the movie theaters, came to us after the last one and said, I don't think I want to work movies anymore. And we asked why, and he said it's too hard for him not getting his first choice, but could he still attend movies as a member? Yes, you could definitely. And for us, that was a huge moment for him, deciding that there's an environment he was perfectly capable to work in, had worked in the past, loved going to movies, but decided that movies were going to be his social thing. They weren't going to be his place of work. And so for us, that was a huge moment for him, and we really applauded him for that, saying that's how you empower yourself. You make your choices, you be assertive, and you let us know what you want. So that was a huge moment. And then we always have a spot as new mentors come in to give them some readings from past mentors for some advice. And so always be willing to listen to feedback or criticism.